Hello, BookTube. This morning I think I'd like to um, do another set of books. I do this because on the shelf tours, the sets either take up too much time when we run into one, or they don't get enough attention if we run into one. And this is actually a set I acquired to read that I have not read yet. And that I'm really looking forward to. And it was a quite a find because I found them all together, and they're not very old. I mean, compared to some of the sets I have, and it's a mystery series, and they're written by, I got the glasses here, Bruce Alexander, which was a pseudonym for Bruce Cook, a well-known author of numerous works of both fiction and nonfiction, and he died in 2003. And these volumes, and there's, let's see, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's 11 of them, are the Sir John Fielding mysteries. And here's the first volume. I hope we can get this without too much glare. And I got them, they're all, somebody must have really loved them. I bought them used. So Blind Justice marks the debut of a delightful mystery series featuring the legendary 18th century London judge Sir John Fielding. In 18th century England, Fielding was famed not only as a co-founder with his half-brother, the novelist Henry Fielding, of London's first police force, the Bow Street Runners. I don't know if that's Bow or Bow. I'm going to say Bow Street Runners. But as a magistrate of keen intellect, fairness, and uncommon detective ability. When a crime was committed, he often took it upon himself to solve it. What made this all the more remarkable was that he was blind. Now, this first one I have is G.P. Putnam and Sons, New York. This is first edition. This came out in '94. Blind Justice introduces one of the most remarkable mystery heroes in years. As accompanied by his eyes and the series narrator, 13-year-old Jeremy Proctor, Fielding probes into every stratum of London society in pursuit of the truth. In this case, the truth has to do with the death of a lord, whose suicide soon begins to look like something very different indeed. A widow with no tears, a room with no exit, a servant with no pass, a corpse with clean hands. These are but a few of the elements that will lead Fielding into a dark labyrinth of deception, greed, and murder. A labyrinth, you will find, with a very unusual monster at its center. So that's the first one. So hopefully we can get this so you can see it. And then the second one here is Murder in Grub Street. Another Sir John. They're all Sir John Fielding mysteries. I'm not going to read that every time. This one, G.P. Putnam and Sons, New York. This one is 1995. Excuse me. Let's see. Fielding comes across a crime of a particularly shocking and sanguinary nature. A bookseller publisher, his wife and 2 sons are found murdered in their living quarters above his shop on Grub Street. On the scene, ranting and brandishing an axe, stands John Clayton, identified by the broadsheets as the mad poet from Buckinghamshire. Clearly, the culprit has been caught, and justice in Fielding's court will be swift, but Fielding himself is not so sure. Discrepancies nibble at him, easy evidence seems too easy, and to satisfy both his curiosity and his conscience, he decides to dig a little deeper and uncovers a stew of politics, religion, and greed so evil it astonishes even him. The next one here is Watery Grave. This one is, I'm not going to, the publisher on these is G.P. Putnam's and Sons. So I'm not going to say that every time now. So this is 96, so a year later. Let's see. In Watery Grave, accompanied by his eyes, the series narrator, young Jeremy Proctor, Fielding encounters a case that hits close to home as a stepson returns from the high seas with tales of typhoons and a captain overboard. Wow. Was it an accident or was it murder? Fielding is asked to investigate but discovers considerably more than he'd bargained for, including some secrets that might better have been left at the bottom of a watery grave. So that was number 3. Number 4 is Person or Persons Unknown. This one is 1997. Now the blind magistrate and his young assistant in ward, Jeremy Proctor, faces a series of crime that hits shockingly close to home. Prostitutes are being murdered around Covent Garden, and there are troubling implications about the identity of the killer. Baffled and frustrating, Fielding devises a daring and desperate plan, but the consequences are unexpected and more terrible than he could imagine. So that was Person or Persons Unknown. And then we'll go Jack, Knave, and Fool. I love these covers. This one is 98. Let's see. The pair face a baffling pair of deaths. A lord dies suddenly when attending a concert. A disembodied head washes up on the banks of the Thames. While investigating both, Sir John and Jeremy will learn more than they ever cared to about family, greed, and deception, and the peculiar nature of homicide, high and low. We have Death of a Colonial. And this one is 1999. All right. A nobleman, the last of his line, is executed, and his possessions are set to go to the crown when his younger brother, missing for 7 years, suddenly reappears to stake his claim. But where has he been? Why does his mother react to him so oddly? And what connection does his case have to a suicide by hanging of an American in London? To find the answers, Sir John and his ward Jeremy must travel from London to Bath to Oxford, and finally to a much darker place. Then we have The Color of Death. And this one is 2000. Suspicion and fear are running high in London as a gang of expert criminals terrorizes the town in a spree of robbery and murder. Noblewomen are held at gunpoint in their parlors, and an innocent manservant is executed in cold blood. There is but one peculiar clue to the identity of this group. The robbers are all black men. When Sir John takes a bullet to the shoulder early on, it is young Jeremy Proctor, who has been the blind magistrate's eyes for so many years, who must lead this most delicate investigation, albeit under Sir John's bedridden counsel. And when Jeremy begins to turn over stones, he and Sir John come to find that black and white is never as simple as it seems, and the deeds being committed are even darker than they imagined. That one sounds something. This one's Smugglers Moon, another cover I really like. And this one is 2001. Off the water that separates England from France, near the seaside town of Deal, it is a well-known fact that owling, a local term for the illegal cargo trade, thrives on the moonlit beaches. At the behest of a very concerned Lord Chief Justice, Sir John and Jeremy travel to Deal to investigate the town magistrate, accused of complicity in the smuggling. Oddly, the young man is a truculent protege of the Lord Chief Justice himself. Sir John and Jeremy couldn't have arrived at a better time, just as the smugglers turned murderous. The first body, throat slit from ear to ear, turns up where it shouldn't, on the estate of Sir Simon Grenville, an esteemed member of the local gentry. After the Deal magistrate proves that the murder is not what it appears to be, one dead body seems to lead immediately to another, and Sir John and Jeremy realize they face some very powerful enemies. What they find in Deal is most alarming. The booty on Smuggler's Beach is not only is not the only thing to fall in the wrong hands. So it seems, has the law. Okay. Then we have An Experiment in Treason. You probably recognize the face on that cover. It's Benjamin Franklin. So let's see. This one is 2002. Let's see. In an experiment in treason, a packet of incendiary letters is stolen from the London residence of a prominent official and turns up in the colony of Massachusetts. Why are the contents of the letters so controversial? Why is the suspect in the theft turned up dead? And what should Sir John do about his feeling that Benjamin Franklin himself is somehow complicit? While the tensions rise, Sir John and Jeremy search for answers and find that justice isn't always served by the letter of the law. So here is the next to last one. And it's important to note that because this one, The Price of Murder, is published in 2003, and that's the year that Bruce Alexander died. And in this one, Sir John and Jeremy are drawn deep into the notorious Seven Dials section of London, where they must contend with the most sordid inclinations of both the working class and the aristocracy. When the body of a young girl is pulled from the Thames, Sir John and Jeremy begin to investigate. But the girl's mother is nowhere to be found, until Jeremy's search for clues lead him to the racetrack. There he discovers just how dangerous the high-stakes battle is that he has gotten himself into. And when an acquaintance of his own suddenly disappears, just how terribly steep the odds. So this is 2003, and that's the year that the author Bruce Alexander dies. So this next volume is a little different. Looks the same, has the same author name on it. It's the Sir John Fielding mystery again. And another really nice cover. But this one is published in 2005. And when you go to the author bit in the back, it says Bruce Alexander was the pseudonym for Bruce Cook, a well-known author of numerous works of both fiction and nonfiction. When Alexander died in late 2003, which is when The Price of Murder came out, he had completed most of Rules of Engagement, which is this one, leaving behind notes on how the remainder of the story was to unfold. The novel has been completed by Bruce's wife, Judith Alexander, although his name is Bruce Cook, so I don't know how that works, and John Shannon. Shannon himself is the author of 4 novels, as well as 6 books in the highly praised Jack Liffey mystery series, most recently Terminal Island. So this is completed by 2 other authors, the deceased author's wife and Mr. Shannon. And it comes out a couple years after the author has died. So in Rules of Engagement, Sir John and Jeremy are confronted with a series of bizarre deaths on the streets of Georgian London, in a mystery that tests even Sir John's legendary skills of deduction. When Lord Lammermoor, a close personal friend of the Lord Chief Justice, plunges to his death from the heights of Westminster Bridge in front of a dozen witnesses, suicide is ruled as the most likely cause of death. But Lammermoor's fatal leap coincides with the arrival of Dr. Galsworthy, a student of the famous Dr. Anton Mesmer, in his research in animal magnetism. Sir John's suspicions grow when it is discovered that Goldsworthy's patron in London is none other than the beautiful and austere Lady Lammermoor. Meanwhile, Jeremy's sleuthing uncovers a web of intrigues within the Lammermoor family, and the deeper he investigates, the more suspects he discovers who stand to gain from Lammermoor's death. Filled with Alexander's richly textured depictions of 18th century London, and with a vibrant cast of characters as vivid and sharp-witted as a Hogarth sketch, according to the Seattle Times, Rules of Engagement is the brilliant conclusion to a splendid series. So this one, again, a little different because it had to be finished by other authors. And we'll see how that works out. So a series of 11 mystery novels, which the blind Sir John Fielding and his sidekick, and Eyes, a young 13-year-old boy that starred anyway. And I'm looking forward to reading it, and hopefully I can report in with a book chat or two. And thank you, BookTube.